Come in, Unit 6. CDC has moved us into a code orange. Repeat, code orange. Maintain safety precautions. All four-legged mammals are now assumed infected and contagious. Use caution. Eliminate on site. Follow emergency procedures for disposal. Today on the Comic Book Report, Feral, Volume 1, Indoor Cats. Stick around and check it out. Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today we're diving into a really fun trade paperback collection I picked up recently from my local comic shop. That's right, we're looking at Feral Volume 1. This was by the same creators as Stray Dogs, which just took off a year or so ago. Really eager to check out a new series, and I had a blast with these first few issues. Can't wait to talk about it, but before we do, I'd just like to shout out the channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link for it in this video's description, and if you see anything there you like, you can actually use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to receive $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's comic book review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written by Tony Fleecs, with art by Trish Forstner and Tone Rodriguez. The comics in this volume were published by Image Comics beginning in 2024. The volume itself collects Feral, issues 1 through 5. And finally, this is a trade paperback collection with glossy print paper stock, a glued binding, and a total of 136 pages. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. And an additional trigger warning for those that don't like when bad things happen to animals, even when they're kind of cartoon, animated, depicted. Just a heads up to all of you folks. Thanks, you've been advised. Okay, and here's our first look at today's trade paperback collection from Image Comics. That's right, we're looking at Feral. I mentioned it at the top of the video, but if you didn't know, this is by the same creative team that brought us Stray Dogs just a year or two ago. Another great kind of animated domestic animal meets horror movie blend, but this is a new ongoing series. You can actually see on the spine of this paperback, there is a little 1 indicating Volume 1, and that's really exciting. I know Stray Dogs was a standalone series. There was like a mini spin-off with Dog Days or Strange Days. I don't know, I haven't read that collection yet, but it was not an ongoing series. It was more or less a standalone kind of graphic novel feel when you got that collected edition at least. This though is an ongoing series, so we have a longer adventure here. As I said, this collects the first 5 issues, which it details a bit on the back of this book, but overall the exteriors are really well presented. We got a little sampling of the art, things about the book, all pretty standard here. We even have some blurbs from different comic creators about the collection, which I always love to see. At any rate, when we're done examining the exteriors, I wanted to take a quick look at the binding. As I said, it is a glued binding, which is super common for these trade paperback collections. Overall, perhaps a little bit of gutter loss, but nothing too wild here. It's, again, what I expect from a standard Image trade paperback. And yeah, just thought I'd give everyone a look, especially those thinking about picking this book up. Now, I just thought it'd be fun to showcase the other book I just mentioned, in case somehow you have never heard of Stray Dogs and you just happen to click on this Feral video. Stray Dogs is the first comic I'm aware of from this creative team, so it has a very, very similar visual style. Stray Dogs basically tells the story of a bunch of kind of house dogs who are all in this house with a presumably loving owner, only to discover that's maybe not all that's going on. As far as what it feels almost like a cartoon animated kind of like cutesy looking dog movie mixed with something like Silence of the Lambs. It's a taut kind of suspense thriller horror. Anyway, it's a really wild book. I did review it a year or two ago on the channel, I believe, if you'd like to take a look. And if you'll just indulge me for another 30 seconds, I thought I'd go ahead and show this off as well. So I did pick up Feral from my local comic shop, and they were actually hosting both Tony Fleecs and Tone Rodriguez, one of the artists on the book, to actually do a signing. So I picked up the book there, and I actually got my copy of Stray Dogs signed along with this book, Feral. And I just thought I'd showcase this here because it was a really fun experience. The comic creators couldn't have been kinder, and again, huge shout out to the local shop, Nowhere Games and Comics. Okay, and with that taken care of, let's go ahead and dive into the book proper. As I said, this is a 5-issue trade paperback collection. We do have a title page, kind of the publication information, things like that, but then we're basically off to the races. At the back of the book, we do have a small collection of extras, mostly the covers for the issues, couple variant covers, because with the issues themselves, as they appear in this book, we mostly have these kind of chapter breaks in the trade paperback, something to be noted as well, but I really do like seeing that they are named chapters. It really felt like you were reading like more of a graphic novel, and just really fun, really immersive, interesting. But as far as how this book is set up, if you don't know the general premise, what Stray Dogs did for kind of that taut psychological horror thriller suspense genre, Feral really does kind of an homage to sort of a zombie contagion kind of outbreak sort of situation. It's basically house cats that are dealing with this virulent form of rabies that's infecting all of these other local animals. But yeah, our story basically kicks off with a kind of cat catcher sort of van driving down the road, and a couple of house cats from the same home are banging around trying to figure out what's happening, how they got there, why they're being taken. This car kind of crashes, careens off the edge of a road, and these cats escape, but they are missing one of their fellow house cats. But now they're kind of in the woods near their hometown, totally alone, abandoned, and at first they don't really know if anything is super wrong with the world. They just know they're away from home and trying to find the missing cat. But along the way, it doesn't take very long at all to encounter the first sort of rabid creature or two. And along this book, we have so many animals that succumb to this crazy version of rabies. You know, we have things like cats and raccoons and dogs or wolves and bats. And again, so many other things happening all at once. And these cats are really up against it, trying to save their lives and get away from these rabid animals. The actual rabies is really shown visually through the use of red eyes and kind of foaming at the mouth, and they're just super, violent and just aggressive looking. But it really just follows the kind of standard zombie narrative formula, but using these kind of cutesy cartoon animated looking house cats. I think it was just a really brilliant blending of these genres. And if you're someone who likes the horror genre, but maybe you like to go on the little bit of the lighter side of horror, this might be right up your alley. You know, I don't review too many horror comics on the channel. I'm trying to get away from kind of the harder edge of horror. But this is a pretty fun series, like Stray Dogs was before it. It's definitely a really loving homage to the genre while still being an active part of it. I think the juxtaposition of the really rounded, cute-looking cat, depictions mixed with just the sheer horror of kind of a zombie narrative is really fascinating. There's also this angle of kind of a travel narrative where we have the cats trying to find their missing cat, who once they find him, he's kind of a young, more exuberant cat. He's been declawed, so he's even more presumably at risk to everything that's going on. But we have them kind of finding each other and then trying to find their way home. They encounter a band of more rugged outdoor cats, and the younger cat actually thinks he sees his house in the distance when he climbs up a tree, so the group tries to make their way there. Along the way, and actually earlier in the series, we have one of the main character of the house cats get scratched by one of these rabid animals, so we have them slowly becoming infected. You know, we even get to see their usually yellow eyes becoming a little bit more sunburst or red. So we know the infection is coming. This cat's keeping it a secret, so there is kind of this ticking time bomb element as well for the tension and stakes in the series. Along the way, we do lose some of the animals to these attacks, and we do eventually have the appearance of humans in the form of CDC workers who are talking all about the disease. Eventually, we do have our central band of characters make their way to the house, and we know, being able to read signage, that this house is completely condemned and quarantined, biohazard, all of it. There's caution tape, sign posted. But of course, all our cats know is that their humans aren't home and the house seems relatively empty. We actually have a really good sequence where the TV is on in the background, so we get this great kind of exposition dump with kind of news headlines that we see. The cats are oblivious to all of this. In fact, the one outdoor cat that's sort of leading the band of survivors for a few issues is really confused, thinks it's real, and tries to like paw at the TV, having never seen one. The domesticated cats kind of have a laugh at this, but as a reader, you're almost horrified because you're getting these glimpses of this horrible kind of infection that's spreading, and you get some of the details about how severe it is. We find out that the CDC is kind of on this wild lockdown order where they're kind of meant to kill potentially rabid animals or mammals on sight. So really brutal, really intense, and again, it ups the stakes for us as the reader, perhaps even more so than the characters involved, because we get some of the extra context that we could see from these exposition dumps, like the news broadcasts or what these CDC workers are saying. We even have this great moment where there seems to be something in the basement of the house, perhaps something rabid, no doubt. And then the last issue or so of this book, we basically have the survivors starting to flee the house, especially after their one good friend has finally succumbed and become one of the infected. There's a really brutal showdown. The CDC workers do eliminate some of the characters, unfortunately. And then we have one character going off by themselves after a kind of past trauma is unearthed. Again, I'll leave some details for those that want to go through this book more extensively, but honestly, it's really wild, and we have this really cool turning point. We have sort of winter beginning, the band of cats that are alive still being separated out, and the threat still very much among us, including the recently turned and infected friendly house cat that we once knew. So again, a lot going on here that I really, really liked, and I think it was a perfect starting kind of inaugural collection for what I hope is a long and flourishing ongoing series. The art here we get from Trish Forstner and Tone Rodriguez is absolutely beautiful. Love all the character models we get. Like I said, very reminiscent of what we got with Stray Dogs, just here with cats, and everything we have with the actual virus and what it looks like as these creatures become more rabid, the CDC. It's just really cool to see them play with a bit more ground here. Something else I'd like to note, as you see here at the end of each issue, we have sort of a definition page, news break, a little kind of fun afterwards at the end of each issue, basically, that just build more of the mythos or what's happening in the world. I really like this. I'm not sure how this was presented in the single issues, but I think between the chapter breaks, or chapter headings, I should say, and these end pages, you have this kind of cool punctuated experience as you read through this book. But overall, I really, really liked it. One other note, though, on art, I love the coloring in this book by Brian Simpson. The colors should absolutely be commended because it's really evocative and interesting. And even the color palette he uses in different scenes, especially the more horrific elements, it's just surprising what we see. You know, we see a lot of red between the eyes and sometimes the blood, but we also have these interesting cooler colors like purples and things like that it's really, really striking. It's super immersive, and I think it lends so well to the atmosphere about the whole book. For me, who's been a fan of Stray Dogs for a little bit now, it's funny to read something like Feral, which still obviously has so much of the same DNA as that first collection, but to see it shift subgenres, going to more of an infection zombie kind of narrative, and also just feeling like we have this ongoing pacing. So we don't have as much of the tight, everything's wrapped up, conclusive nature we got with the Stray Dogs miniseries. This is more of just the beginning. This is the first chapter of what I hope, like I said, is a longer series, but I'm invested. I really like the characters we have here. I like the world they're constructing, and I think that there's a lot you can do. I mean, look how long something like The Walking Dead lasted. You could do a similar thing here, just as if they were cats, and honestly, I kind of hope we get something to that end. Really, really fun idea, really fantastic juxtaposition of ideas and genres, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for this really dynamic and interesting series. At the end, we had the cover gallery and, of course, a couple of the variant covers that are sort of horror movie homages. I really, in particular, like that Dawn of the Dead cover homage. Stray Dogs did that a ton, so really great to see it a bit with the Feral series here. I actually wish we got more of the variant covers here included at the back, but maybe in subsequent collections. And with that, we've reached the end of Feral Volume 1 Indoor Cats, and now I think all that's left to do is to give this collection a grade. for another innovative suspense horror thriller with the most adorable animal art. The Comic Book Report easily gives Feral Volume 1 Indoor Cats by Tony Fleecs, Trish Forstner, Tone Rodriguez, and Brian Simpson a B+. I can say this is safely the freshest take I've seen on a essentially zombie narrative in quite some time. I am already immediately connected to so many of the primary characters here. I love the art as always, and I'm fascinated by this world they seem to be building. I am happy to see that this is an ongoing series, and I for one cannot wait to check out the Volume 2. You'll have to let me know if you're reading Feral in the comments section below, or if you've read Stray Dogs. I'd love to get some conversations going about these series, or if you have other great comic book recommendations or recent reads that you've done, let me hear all about that in the comments, and thank you all so much for watching. This has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like, that comment we talked about, and maybe share this video with a friend. Thanks everyone, have a good one.